I watched it.
You watched it?
I watched it. You know how hard that was.
After nearly 5 decades, newly uncovered footage from Elvis's final night has pushed open a door that many thought would stay shut forever. This video shows moments, movements, and choices that changed everything we thought we knew about the king of rock and roll. As each frame comes into view, it pulls up details that had been buried for years, setting off a chain of clues that demand a second look. What seemed simple now feels layered and strange, pushing the story into darker corners and raising questions that can't be ignored. This discovery does not just rewrite the ending, it exposes what was hidden all along. The discovery of hidden security camera footage. It's year 2024, and a man in his 70s walks in a lawyer's office in Memphis, Tennessee. He has carried a secret for 47 years, and the weight of it has finally become too much to bear. This retired security personnel once worked at one of America's most famous homes, and he possesses something that could change music history forever. In his hands is a videotape that was supposed to have been destroyed decades ago. The tape contains footage from August 15, 1977, the day before Elvis Presley passed on. The existence of this footage contradicts everything the public has been told about that tragic day. Official records state that all security camera recordings from that evening were either routine or had technical malfunctions. The tapes that did exist were said to have been reviewed by authorities and then returned to the estate, where they disappeared into private archives. But this particular tape took a different journey. A security worker removed it from the system before anyone else could review it. He recognized immediately that what he had witnessed on that recording was extraordinary and potentially explosive. The tape remained hidden in a climate-controlled storage unit for over 4 decades. The security officer who possessed it wrestled with his conscience year after year. He had signed confidentiality agreements and feared legal consequences. He worried about betraying the trust of a family he had served faithfully. But as he grew older and watched countless documentaries and books present incomplete or inaccurate versions of that final day, he realized the truth needed to emerge. The world deserved to know what really happened during those last hours. When he finally gave up the tape, experts immediately began authentication procedures. Video forensic specialists examined the magnetic tape composition and determined it matched manufacturing standards from the mid-1970s. The camera angles corresponded perfectly with known security camera positions that were documented in estate blueprints. Timestamps on the recording aligned with other verified events from that day. Even the weather visible through windows matched meteorological records from Memphis on that specific date. Every technical analysis pointed to the same conclusion. This footage was genuine. The tape quality reflects the technology of its era, with grainy black and white images that occasionally flicker or blur. But the content remains clearly visible throughout the recording. Multiple cameras captured different areas of the property, and the footage switched between these views automatically. The recording system was state-of-the-art for 1997, installed specifically to provide comprehensive security coverage. What it captured that night went far beyond its intended purpose of monitoring for intruders or emergencies. Historical researchers cross-referenced the footage with testimonies given by family members and staff over the years. Certain moments on the tape confirmed stories that had been dismissed as exaggerated or misremembered. Other segments revealed activities that had never been mentioned in any interview or official statement. The tape showed interactions and events that filled gaps in the established timeline. It provided visual evidence for a story that was far more complex than anyone had previously understood. The decision to release this footage publicly did not come easily. Legal experts reviewed privacy laws and estate rights. Historians debated the ethical implications of revealing such intimate final moments, while family representatives were contacted and given the opportunity to view the material before any public announcement. The discussions were lengthy and often emotional. Everyone involved recognized that once this tape became public knowledge, it would fundamentally alter how the world understood one of music's most tragic losses. When news of the tape's existence finally broke, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Media outlets around the world scrambled to obtain details. Elvis fans flooded social media with reactions ranging from excitement to skepticism. Conspiracy theorists saw validation for long-held beliefs, while others approached the revelation with caution. Experts who had spent their careers studying Elvis Presley's life and death now found themselves reconsidering conclusions they had reached years ago. The music legend who had been gone for nearly half a century was suddenly at the center of breaking news. The footage itself runs for several hours, covering the evening and late-night hours of August 15, 1977. It shows a man in his home during what would be the final night of his life, but the person captured on this tape defies many assumptions about his condition and state of mind. The images reveal someone who appears alert and purposeful. His movements and actions suggest a level of awareness that contradicts the idea of a man in the depths of decline. This is where the story truly begins, and where everything people thought they knew starts to unravel. Elvis's unusual behavior and physical condition. The footage begins at approximately 8 in the evening. As natural light fades from the windows of the mansion, Elvis appears on camera moving through the main hallway with a stride that catches experts off guard. For years, the narrative has been that his health had deteriorated severely by this point. Accounts describe a man barely able to function, heavily medicated and confused, but the person on this tape moves with purpose and apparent coordination. His steps are steady as he makes his way toward the private areas of the residence. Medical professionals who have analyzed the footage note several significant observations. Elvis's posture appears relatively upright, despite documented back problems that should have caused him to stoop or move with visible discomfort. His balance seems stable as he climbs stairs and turns corners. There are no signs of the disorientation that many witnesses claimed marked his final days. A physician who specialized in the effects of prescription medication points out that his movements do not match those of someone under heavy sedation. The physical evidence on the tape suggests a different reality than the one presented in official accounts. The cameras capture Elvis making repeated trips to his private office throughout the evening. He carries various items during these journeys, including folders, small boxes, and what appears to be personal correspondence. His actions appear normal and organized. He places items carefully on his desk, sorts through papers, and moves objects from one location to another with clear intention. This behavior contradicts descriptions of someone too impaired to handle basic tasks. The footage shows a man who knows exactly what he is doing and why. During one particularly revealing moment, Elvis stands at his office window for nearly 15 minutes. The camera angle captures his profile as he looks out over the property grounds. His posture is still and contemplative rather than agitated or distressed. He appears to be deep in thought, processing something important. Medical experts note that his breathing appears regular and controlled. There are no visible signs of the respiratory distress that would later be cited as a contributing factor to his demise. The man at the window appears physically compromised, but far from the critical state described in later reports. The footage also captures Elvis interacting with various objects in his office. He opens file cabinets and removes specific documents. He handles these papers carefully, reading them and setting certain ones aside. At one point, he spends over 20 minutes writing at his desk. The camera angle does not show what he is writing, but his concentration could be seen. From time to time, he pauses to think before continuing. This level of focus and cognitive function surprised researchers who have studied accounts of his mental state during this period. Between his office visits, Elvis moves through other areas of the residence. The cameras catch him in the kitchen briefly, then in a sitting room, then back toward the private quarters. Each movement appears deliberate rather than aimless wandering. He is not pacing anxiously or moving without direction. Instead, he seems to be completing specific tasks in a particular order. The pattern suggests someone working through a mental checklist rather than someone in physical or mental crisis. One medical expert who reviewed the footage extensively points out that Elvis's facial expressions remain relatively composed throughout the evening. While he appears tired and occasionally shows signs of physical discomfort, he does not display the confusion or distress that would be expected from someone in severe medical decline. His eyes remain focused when he looks at objects or reads documents. His hand movements are controlled and precise when he handles items. All these observations create a narrative that challenges the accepted timeline of his health struggle. However, the most striking aspect of the footage is what it does not show. There are no falls, no visible episodes of pain that prevent him from functioning, no moments where he appears lost or unable to complete basic actions. The cameras capture a man who is clearly struggling with health issues, but who remains mentally present and physically capable of navigating his environment. This version of Elvis Presley does not match the person described in testimonies given after his passing. The discrepancy raises profound questions about what was really happening during those final hours and why the true picture was never fully revealed. It leaves a lingering sense that something vital was never explained, pushing every witness account into doubt and reminding us that the final hours of his life remain unresolved, fractured, and deeply unsettling. The footage presents a reality that forces a complete reconsideration of everything that came next. The private meeting. The timestamp on the footage reads 45 minutes past 10 p.m. when a car pulls into the estate driveway. The security camera at the entrance captures the arrival clearly. A man exits the vehicle and walks toward the main entrance with a medical bag in his hand. This is Dr. George Nikopoulos, Elvis's personal physician, arriving for a visit that was never documented in any official timeline. The doctor's presence at this late hour immediately raises questions. This was not a scheduled appointment, and there is no record of anyone calling for emergency medical assistance at this time. The interior cameras pick up the doctor's entrance into the home. Elvis meets him in the main hallway, and the two men exchange words that the silent footage cannot capture. Their body language tells a story of its own. Elvis gestures emphatically while speaking, his hands moving to emphasize points. The doctor stands with his arms crossed initially, then shifts his weight and shakes his head. This is not the interaction between a compliant patient and his trusted physician. The tension between them is visible even without sound. The two men move toward a private room that was specifically designed for confidential conversations. The walls of this space were soundproof to prevent anyone from overhearing discussions inside. Elvis had used this room for business meetings and personal conversations he wanted to keep completely private. The choice of this location for the meeting with his doctor suggests the conversation would cover matters requiring absolute discretion. The door closes behind them at 10:50 p.m., and they remain inside for the next 73 minutes. During this time, the hallway camera continues recording the closed door. At several points, shadows move across the gap beneath the door, indicating movement inside the room. At one point, approximately 30 minutes into the meeting, the door opens briefly. Elvis steps out alone and walks quickly to his office. He retrieves a folder from his desk and returns to the soundproofed room. The entire detour takes less than 3 minutes. During this brief appearance, he appears serious and determined. When the door finally opens again at 3 minutes past midnight, the two men emerge with distinctly different demeanor. The doctor exits first, and his body language has shifted dramatically from how he arrived. His shoulders are slumped, and he carries his medical bag with one hand while the other rubs his forehead. Elvis follows him out, and the camera captures a moment where he places his hand on the doctor's shoulder. The gesture appears part reassurance and part insistence. The doctor responds with a slight nod, but does not look directly at Elvis. The two men walk together toward the entrance, and their final exchange at the door lasts several minutes. Elvis does most of the apparent talking, with the doctor listening and occasionally responding briefly. At one point, the doctor removes a prescription pad from his jacket pocket, writes something, tears off the page, and hands it to Elvis. Elvis looks at the paper, folds it carefully, and places it in his own pocket. They shake hands, and the doctor departs at 14 minutes past 12. Elvis stands in the doorway watching the car leave before closing the door. The significance of this undocumented meeting cannot be overstated. Dr. Nikopoulos testified extensively after Elvis's demise about his patient's final days. He described the medications prescribed, the treatments attempted, and the conversations they had. But he never mentioned this late-night visit on August 15. When questioned about his interactions with Elvis that day, the doctor provided a timeline that did not include this 73-minute meeting. The omission seems deliberate rather than a simple oversight. Medical ethics experts who have reviewed the footage point out several concerning elements. The private nature of the meeting, the lack of any documentation, and the subsequent omission from testimony all suggest a conversation that involved matters beyond routine medical care. The body language indicates disagreement or difficult decision-making rather than ordinary patient care. The exchange of what appears to be a prescription at the door raises additional questions about what was discussed and what was decided during that lengthy private conversation. After the doctor's departure, Elvis remains standing in the hallway for several minutes. The camera captures him looking at the folded paper from his pocket twice before walking slowly back toward his private quarters. His posture has changed from earlier in the evening. His shoulders are lower, and his steps are heavier. Something about that meeting has affected him deeply. The man who appeared relatively composed and purposeful earlier now shows visible signs of emotional weight. Whatever was discussed in that soundproofed room clearly had a profound impact on what was about to unfold. Elvis's final preparations. After the physician's departure, Elvis moves through the mansion with a changed energy. The cameras capture him entering his office at 22 minutes past midnight, and he remains there for the next 90 minutes. During this extended period, the footage shows him engaged in activities that suggest careful planning rather than random late-night restlessness. He sits at his desk with multiple pieces of stationery spread before him. His hand moves steadily across the pages as he writes. He completes one letter, sets it aside, and begins another. This continues for several cycles. The camera angle from above the office door provides a partial view of his actions. Elvis appears to be writing different letters to different people. Some are brief, taking only a few minutes to complete. Others require more time and apparent thought. He pauses between letters, sometimes sitting back in his chair and staring at the ceiling. At other times, he leans forward with his head in his hands before picking up the pen again. The emotional weight of what he is writing shows in his posture and movements. When he finishes writing, Elvis carefully folds each letter and places it in a separate envelope. He writes names on the front of each envelope with calm precision. The footage shows him handling at least 6 different envelopes during this process. After sealing them, he does not leave them on his desk or in an obvious location. Instead, he walks to a wall panel that opens to reveal a personal safe. The combination lock requires several turns, and he works it with practiced familiarity. The safe door swings open, and he places the sealed envelopes inside, among other items already stored there. After securing the safe, Elvis remains standing in front of it for a long moment. His hand rests on the closed door, as if he is making a final mental confirmation about something important. When he finally turns away, his expression appears resolved but heavy. He has completed a task that clearly carried substantial emotional implications. The action of placing those letters in the safe suggests they were meant to be found later, under specific circumstances that he was now preparing for. The next segment of footage captures something that changes the entire tone of the evening. At approximately 15 minutes past 2 in the morning, Elvis's daughter Lisa Marie appears in the hallway. She is 9 years old and should be asleep at this hour. She walks toward her father's location, and he emerges from his office as if he sensed her presence. The cameras capture their meeting in the hallway from multiple angles. What happens next is one of the most emotionally powerful moments on the entire tape. Elvis drops to one knee to bring himself to his daughter's eye level. He pulls her into an embrace that lasts far longer than a typical goodnight hug. His arms wrap completely around her small frame, and his face presses against the top of her head. The intensity of the embrace is visible even in the grainy footage. This is not a casual father-daughter moment. This is a man holding his child as if he might not get another chance. The desperation and love in the gesture are unmistakable. When they finally separate, Elvis keeps his hands on his daughter's shoulders. The camera captures him speaking to her, and though there is no audio, his mouth movements suggest he is saying something deep. His expression is tender, but also sad in a way that suggests he is saying things he needs her to understand. Lisa Marie nods several times, and at one point reaches up to touch her father's face. The gesture seems to affect him deeply. He closes his eyes briefly before standing and taking her hand to walk her back toward the bedroom areas. The cameras follow them through the hallways until they reach Lisa Marie's room. Elvis tucks her into bed and sits on the edge of the mattress for several minutes. He strokes her hair gently and appears to be talking softly. When he finally stands to leave, he pauses in the doorway and looks back at his sleeping daughter for a long moment. The footage captures him raising his hand in a small wave, as if saying goodbye rather than goodnight. And although she may not know it, the gesture seems final in a way that is heartbreaking to watch decades later. Elvis returns to his office one final time at approximately 47 minutes past 2. He moves around the room straightening papers and returning items to their proper places. His actions suggest someone putting affairs in order. He checks the safe one more time, spinning the combination lock to ensure it is secure. Before leaving the office, he stands in the center of the room and slowly looks around, as if memorizing every detail. His hand reaches out to touch the desk, then a bookshelf, then the back of his chair. These are the actions of a man saying goodbye to a space that has been important to him. When he finally leaves the office and closes the door, behind him, The timestamp reads 4 minutes past 3 in the morning. The cameras continue recording, but Elvis Presley does not appear on them again. He walked away from the hallway, heading straight for his bedroom to retire for the night. By the time he reached it, he was already fading from view, ending the long night in complete solitude. The truth that changes everything. The footage that has remained hidden for 47 years now forces a fundamental reconsideration of what really happened the day before Elvis's passing in 1997. The official narrative has always presented Elvis's demise as a tragic but somewhat predictable outcome of years of declining health and prescription medication dependence. The story told to the public was of a man who had lost control of his life, whose body finally gave out under the strain of excess and neglect. But the tape reveals a very different truth about those final hours. This was not a man stumbling blindly toward an accidental demise. This was someone who understood exactly what was happening to him. The footage shows Elvis displaying a level of awareness that contradicts decades of accepted history. His deliberate actions throughout the evening reveal someone taking stock of his situation and responding with clear-headed purpose. The repeated trips to his office were not random walks, but specific missions to handle important matters. The careful organization of documents and personal items shows someone preparing for a future he knew he might not see. Every action captured on the tape suggests a man who understood the extent of his condition far better than anyone acknowledged. The meeting with his personal physician takes on new meaning when viewed through this lens. This was not a routine medical visit or an emergency call for immediate treatment. This was a consultation between two people discussing outcomes and options. The tension visible in their body language makes sense when understood as disagreement about how to proceed with a patient who knew he was in serious trouble. The length of their private conversation suggests complex discussions about medical realities, treatment choices, and possible scenarios. The doctor's changed mood when leaving indicates he understood the gravity of decisions being made. The letters Elvis wrote after the physician departed were clearly messages meant to be read after his passing. The care he took in composing them and the security of placing them in his personal safe indicate they contained emotional thoughts for specific people. These were not casual notes or routine correspondence. They were the final words of someone who recognized he might not have another opportunity to express what needed to be said. The existence of these letters proves he was contemplating his mortality in concrete terms. His interaction with his young daughter represents perhaps the most heartbreaking evidence of his awareness. Elvis knew that embrace in the hallway might be his last chance to hold her. The intensity of his emotion during those moments came from understanding their potential finality. His words to her, though unheard on the silent footage, were likely some form of guidance or expression of love, meant to last beyond his physical presence. A father saying goodnight would not display that level of desperate tenderness. A father saying goodbye would. Medical experts analyzing the footage have concluded that Elvis was far more physically capable on his last night than official accounts suggested. This raises troubling questions about why his actual condition was misrepresented after his demise. The narrative of a man too impaired to function helped explain how someone so famous could pass away in his own home. But the footage proves this narrative was false. Elvis was struggling with serious health issues, but he was still mentally alert and physically mobile enough to handle complex tasks. Why was this truth obscured? The answer appears to lie in the decisions Elvis himself made during those final hours. The evidence suggests he chose not to seek additional medical intervention despite being aware of his declining condition. The meeting with his physician likely involved discussions about hospitalization or more aggressive treatments that Elvis declined. His actions afterward, preparing final letters and spending time with his daughter, indicate he had accepted the possibility of dying and was making peace with it on his own terms. This level of autonomous decision-making complicated the narrative that others wanted to tell after his passing. Family members and close associates who were questioned after Elvis passed away consistently portrayed his final day as ordinary and usual. They described him as behaving normally, with no indication that anything was seriously wrong. But the footage proves this was not the whole truth. People in the house that night witnessed activities they couldn't reveal. The undocumented physician visit alone proves that significant events occurred, which were deliberately left out of official accounts. The question becomes whether this was done to protect Elvis's reputation, to avoid difficult questions, or to serve other interests. The tape also reveals the profound isolation of Elvis's final hours. Despite being surrounded by family and staff in a large household, he He faced his crisis essentially alone. The private meetings, the solitary letter writing, and the late-night organizational task were all completed without assistance or apparent input from others. He made his preparations and his peace with his situation by himself. This isolation likely stemmed from his desire to protect those around him from the full weight of his circumstances. But it also meant that when the crisis reached its conclusion, there was no one positioned to intervene. What the footage ultimately exposes is that Elvis Presley's demise was not the complete surprise or unavoidable tragedy it was presented to be. It was the final chapter in a story he himself understood was ending. He recognized the severity of his condition, consulted with his doctor about his options, and made conscious choices about how to spend what might be his last night alive. He put his affairs in order, expressed his love to his daughter, and secured messages for those who would need them. These were the actions of someone preparing for the end, not someone unaware of approaching disaster. The truth that nobody expected is that Elvis knew, and in knowing, he faced his end with more dignity and awareness than history has given him credit for. The footage changes everything because it reveals the conscious humanity behind the tragedy, replacing the story of a man destroyed by his weaknesses with the reality of someone confronting his mortality with remarkable grace.